I can tell you all the ways that you can make like lives easier for students, not easier, but like remove barriers, priority registration, lactation rooms, child-friendly spaces, child-friendly policies, on-campus childcare, financial support, flexible scheduling in classes. But when I really take a step back to think like, okay, what is the what is the goal of all, what's the outcome of that? Or how do we even get to even those things? How do we even get to saying, here's the resources for you because you're a parent, is you need to know who your parents are. And so I think the best way to support student parents is to identify your student parents and not piecemealed through financial aid or through Dreamers and different data where you're pulling it together on an Excel spreadsheet. We are in 2024. Like we have data systems, like why are we not asking these questions? Why are student parents not designated as an equity group? Why does federal funding dollars not come to this group? And so I think we just need to start with data. And if we're gonna close equity gaps, which is the goal of ECMC Foundation, we need to know what those gaps are.
In the middle of the pandemic, we actually implemented a pre-registration survey. So before every term when a student registers for classes, they answer 2 or 3 questions, and one of them, in addition to housing insecure, formerly incarcerated, we also ask if you're a student parent. And so we can identify every student parent term by term, and we case manage them. And then from there, like you said, you're able to bundle services because students don't know what they don't know. So if you don't know that there is a Boys and Girls Club on campus that will give you free after-school care, how are you going to take advantage of that? If you didn't know that there's a CalWORKS office or there's a lactation room or all these different services, you could, I think my biggest gripe with higher education is we'll build all these programs, offices, and centers, and then you walk through them and they're empty. Well, why are they empty? Not because we have students that don't care, it's just they're not informed oftentimes. And so I think to both your points, we have to build systems that are responsive at the student level, not just looking at the aggregate data, term-by-term data at each semester, but really to be able to say, okay, we need to make sure that we connect you from the very beginning with all the resources so you're not waiting till a student's on academic probation or on financial aid warning and trying to intervene. You're setting them up for success at the very beginning of the term, and that requires a paradigm shift.
Completely 100% to everything around the table. The data collection, when people say, well, how do we get started? The first thing we say at Generation Hope is data. Start collecting the data because people can dismiss the paradigm shift that needs to happen because they're like, that's like what, 10 students here out of what, 30,000? So being able to say, actually, it's 1 in 3, and then people are like, oh, right? So you got to have the data. We have states that are starting to pass legislation that are requiring higher ed institutions to start collecting the parenting status of their students. And in many cases, that has forced the hands of these institutions, but in a really good way, because it does then allow them to say, okay, now we do know that 30%, 25% of our students are parenting. We actually do need more lactation spaces. We need more case managers. Our advisor to student ratio is completely inadequate, right? So I think that also what we don't talk about as much is the policy environments that are really needed. And in order to create those environments, we have to get policymakers to start to see this population.
I often find when I talk to folks that are either they are or they aren't aware is not that they don't want to be, they just didn't know. And so it really starts with the institution of knowing who their students are and then creating and fostering a culture that appreciates that. And I love that so much about Generation Hope with you were ahead of the game in producing and releasing a public syllabi statement for institutions to use to say if you're a parenting student and you need accommodations, Title IX, federal policies that protects parenting and pregnant students. That there's just a lack of awareness, and that when we get to that awareness, how could you not want to support these incredible group of students?